Hey, Chloe, thanks so much for joining me on a well-designed business today.
Hello, Luann. It's really, really special to be here. Thank you.
You sound so calm and normal, Chloe, and you know we're both jumping out of our skin right now.
It's so exciting. Oh, it's unbelievably exciting to be here.
It's unbelievably exciting for me to have you here, Chloe. I know you know this. I'm 99% sure you know this, but you are the first person that ever signed up for any type of coaching with me ever in my whole
Oh,
life. You know that, right?
well, I wasn't quite sure if it was actually the first, but that's so lovely. And I guess that
Yes.
was because of the time zones, and I was a keen fan by then, and it popped up, and that was sort of September. Yeah, it's the end.
2000
Yes,
yeah,
17.
2017, and that was the coaching program that I did with Nancy Ganskaufer, right? You were
Yeah,
part of that first coaching program with
which is
Nancy.
lovely, and I love Nancy to bits too.
Yeah, and it's so funny because when first of all, the absolute pleasure it has been for me for us to continue this relationship all these years online through the Instagram posts and emails here and there and DMs. Um, but having that, I have that relationship right with many, right? That we've just known each other through social. But when I think about that first 8-week program, and there might have been 6 or 8 or 9 of you in that program, and each Nancy and I went through all of each of your materials, your website, the problems that you were having. And then we had individual one-on-ones with you
Yeah,
through that, right?
yeah.
When I look, first of all, and just think back where you were and where you are now, lady, it is like incredible.
I know, it's funny, and I've got all the materials around me because I dug out my notebook and I
Oh
started
my
to look at
gosh.
my vision board that I did while I did it. It's just so lovely, and I it's kind of like it's quite funny to sort of meet yourself again, isn't it? When you reread your
Yeah.
notes about things, and yeah, it's been lovely, and you really have got me on the road to so many good things in our industry. It's crazy because I I graduated as a furniture and product designer and
Mhm.
then worked for the Body Shop for 10 years, which was the most amazing experience in learning about retail design and becoming working in sustainability early and also being ethical in business. But I just literally, I've never been all that great at the business side of it, but nobody like you're always saying, but nobody ever teaches you that. So I couldn't believe it so do you mind if I tell everybody how I found you? So I'm in the professional body here in the UK, which is called the British Institute of Interior Design. It's a really brilliant organisation. It's a non-profit. It's government recognised, and it's a, a reassuringly difficult entry process. They want to make sure that you're properly insured and properly trained and all of this. Um, and after a few years of being a member, they started to say, you know, the CPD, we have to do CPD. You call it CEU in the
Yes,
States,
yes,
yeah.
CEUs, right, to maintain your accreditation.
Yeah, and the reason I joined them was because of that, because I love learning. I wanted to keep it going. So yeah, they just sort of started to add in some other things that we could do for that. And one of them was a podcast. And I was thinking, I haven't heard any podcasts, but let's check it out. And yours was the only one sitting there. And it was and that's how I found you.
Oh my
So every time I listened to you, I could put that time on my sheet and send that in every year. And then I realized, I'm being coached by this lady. I'm listening to her and it's actual coaching. And yeah, and then you actually offered the coaching, which was brilliant. And it was a really, really timely thing for me. So yeah, it was lovely, and to get to know you and Nancy better was lovely because, of course, I'd
Yes.
heard Nancy on the podcast a few
Yes, yes, at
times
that
by
point,
then.
she had been on, yes. So, Chloe, I have to just stop you for a second because I know at one point during our, last 7, 8 years together that you had mentioned that you were able to submit the hours that you listened to this podcast as CEUs.
Yeah.
Did you just say that when you went to their website and they listed my podcast
Oh,
as an option? No, you submitted it,
yeah. So
right?
I
Yes,
found
okay,
you.
I was
I
about to
found.
really
Oh,
go,
yeah. Well, that
"Whoa."
would have been really cool.
Yeah, I'm like, "Wait a second, I gotta call these people."
Mind you, I talk about you at every opportunity, and of course, I've since found some lovely people like Jex, who have also been listening to
Oh,
you. We love
Jex,
Jex.
yes,
So
yes.
I feel like I've made so many friends through listening as well
Yeah.
here
Well,
and
and
over.
Deborah Damari, right?
Oh,
Deborah
wow.
Rosenberg from vegandesign.org, I remember your
Yeah.
meeting through.
So,
Yes, yes,
so
yes.
when I,
That was when you really started to get into your own, when you met Deborah, I
well,
believe.
it was listening to her. So her podcast, she'd done two, I think, and they'd already been recorded, and I was in catch-up mode, like most people probably are with all your, and it was like she's talking to me. She's saying all these
Yes.
things that were the things that we did for the Body Shop head office. We were avoiding animal products. We were avoiding all the toxic chemicals. We were thinking about the people in our supply chains. And it was just like, whoa. And then she spoke about her course. And in the July of that year, I took her course. So actually before I did your group coaching.
Mhm.
And, yeah. And then I realized I was the first one in the UK and maybe in Europe, I'm not sure, but that had,
Mm.
the designer who had taken the course. And so I kind of felt myself in this place where, okay, well, I've learned lots of great things, or I could share what I've learned and talk about it loudly. And and I just thought, well, I'm a one person business. I've always felt quite agile as a business, and I can make decisions. It's lovely, that feeling, isn't it, when you
Yes.
don't have a great long sort of improvement process. So I just went
20
through it.
people that have to say yes in a suit,
Yeah.
right?
So I just
That's what I always say. I love being self-employed. I get to make all the decisions.
It's great. So I
Right.
just thought, no, I'm going for this because if I talk about it, it will make it easier for other people. And then,
Mhm.
so my professional body became interested and people started asking me questions. And I like to be that person who people feel they can approach and ask a silly question. And,
Mm.
and so I started to write articles. It just got,
I
I mean,
find
I got an
it
article in
crazy.
Forbes. I was in, I was in the
What?
Telegraph in the UK, Stella magazine. There's all these amazing publications because I was is it a Fred Burns the only?
Yes, you put your stake in your claim and your Fred Burns only.
Isn't
Yes.
it bonkers?
The thing is for me, what's so interesting is, and this is what I was alluding to when I said to watch you build this magnificent platform for yourself. And when I say platform, we're not talking about a Shay McGee, 400,000, $4 million followers. I mean, this business that you're so passionate about and that you bring every ounce of your intention and joy and all the things to, and your professional world acknowledges it, right? Like you said, the Forbes and Telegraph and your professional body in the UK and us over here that, on LinkedIn that we follow you. And the thing about it is, Chloe, is I will never forget our first one on one. And I'm reading the intake form that you did. And of course, I'm pouring through your website and I'm just like, nothing is lining up. And it was like, you're telling me what you want to do, but everything on your website is telling me what you did do. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was like what you had done at that point was multiple dentist office, if I remember.
Yeah.
Legitimate, like dentist office, not
Yes.
just professional office, but somehow one dentist told another dentist.
That's,
And I was like, do you want to do like, because that's a thing. You could be the person who niches or Fred Burns only is she's the best dental office designer in the UK. You could be travel all over Europe doing dentist. And you're like, no, like this is important to me, sustainability and vegan design and all the things. And I was like, well, where is it? Where are you telling me about that? And Chloe, I'm going to tell you what, going and looking at your website today, I am not a girl who cries. I am the Tin Man, and I'm almost
Oh,
going to cry now.
oh, Louis.
Like, I'm serious, Chloe. The growth and the transformation and the speaking in your true voice
Oh,
is so abundantly clear now. And I remember reading this website in 2017 and meeting you and being like, where is Chloe? Like, this is not the person I'm having meetings with every week. This is not her. And reading it and getting ready for this interview again, I was like, every page oozes you.
oh,
And that is so incredible. It really is a testament to your hard work and
oh.
that reflection and just like we say all the time, don't be afraid to claim your niche. Right? You're
Yeah.
so much louder in a small space when it's the space that means something to you. It's I just am so I want to say proud of you as
Oh,
if like I have a hand in it, but I am
but you
just so
do.
happy for you.
Oh, look, you so do have a hand in it, and this we call it a niche here. So the niche,
Okay.
our niche. So you know, it feels so counterintuitive to do it, but it does
Yeah.
make you feel well, you're not swishing around in this general interior designer kind of space,
Yes.
and your voice can get heard. Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
And I'm somebody with quite a quiet voice, and you know, this is a lot of this is pushing me out there. But I think if
Yeah.
I'm influencing other designers and helping them with their educational journey and awareness of our industry, I'm really happy. So yeah, for me, it's not a money in the bank thing. It's feeling really helpful and useful in our industry.
Well, and isn't that the core of what Fred Burns has taught us, what Nancy taught us about niche is rich and, what is broke,
Yeah,
whatever, broad is
broad
broke,
is
right?
broke.
Like, right? Like all of the people that have come on the show, Nicole Heimer, identifying your brand, Rachel Johansson, Rachel Bostic Johansson, what is your superpower? Like she had and Jillian like doing playrooms
Oh
basically
yeah,
for well-to-do
yeah,
families like that could afford $100,000 playroom because they want to pour into their children's psychological, emotional, and intellectual growth, right? Like the thing about it is the thing about a true, niche, I'll say for you, um, is that element of passion. And that's why it doesn't matter. Like, I think people have heard the various podcast episodes about sustainability and green design and vegan design. And I've had people come up to me at live events and be like, I could sort of lean into that. And I'm like, you don't sort of do that though. You don't sort of do that. You either are in it and you get it and it matters to you, or don't bother. Find the thing that you're not sort of into. I'm going to tell you what, if somebody told me you could niche into playroom design, I would have told you we're crazy. Like I would have
mm,
said, okay, I don't know, you can make a living out of that. But when you do it at the level that Anne does, it's clear. And so the lesson is like what you just said. It's not about the money. It's about expanding your own industry and the designers that you work alongside of, whether that's from the UK to the US to Australia to the UK to the UK, it is something that's in you that you cannot deny. And when you follow that North Star and you lean into it and you don't worry about, I remember you said to me, I said, what are all the dentist office doing here if you don't want to do dentist office? And you're like, it's really the only things I have in my portfolio. I said, well, I do you remember me telling you, take them down. Take them down. You're like, well, what am I going to have? I'm like, I don't care, sweetie. Have blog posts about, your newfound love and passion, but take them down. Like, cause this is confusing, right?
yeah. And the website was sort of way too arty. It didn't say what I did as soon as you went on
Yes.
there, and you said to me, what really stuck in my head was, look, if I go to a restaurant and they do all kinds of cuisines, how am I going to know that any of them are good? They're just mediocre, all kinds of cuisines. And that goes round in my head all the time. So it's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Well, it's like this, look, Vinny loves to go to
Oh,
Vegas and
Vinny.
Atlantic City, right? Right, right. And, it's been 30 years since he said the words to me, "Would you like to go to the buffet?" Because I'm like, no, I do not want to go to the buffet. I do not. I do not want the same cook making me spaghetti and prime rib and omelets. No, I said, we're in Las Vegas. Every restaurant is amazing. Let's go to the steakhouse for steak. Let's go to the fish restaurant for fish. Let's go to the Italian restaurant for Italian, right? It's like you want, and that is the thing. That is the essence of luxury, right? When I'm in Vegas, I am on a trip. This is when we're going to treat ourselves. And yes, it's going to cost more to go to Sinatra's at the Encore Hotel for the same Italian I can get at Nona's here in Florham Park, but it's the whole experience. And they're not like, do you want, Mexican or Italian or American? They're like, if you come to, Sinatra's, you're getting Italian, Lou. I'm like, okay, great. I'm coming for Italian, right? And when you do luxury, that is so critical. And it is, I feel like something we have hammered home for 8 years on the show. And when I look at your website, that's why it just made me so emotional. I was
Oh,
like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. She did it. She is in her lane. And it just, you guys have to, we'll put Chloe's website in the show notes.
oh,
You have to, when you read it, it's like, you know me, Chloe. I expect you all to go do a good job. I don't really, but I was compelled to keep
oh,
reading
really?
every page
Lovely.
because it was telling me the story of Chloe
Oh,
and who she is and how as a designer, why does this make sense? What has come across her path that impacts this like bold passion for sustainable design? And it's like, there it all is. It's not just like, hey, I'm a sustainable designer. Call me if you want, like to be able to wipe off the sofa from your dog's paw prints. Like, it's like, whoa.
because we like a story, don't we? And that's why I like
Yes.
sustainability, because there's so many stories to tell within that as well. And
Yeah.
then I do something for a client who then starts doing things for themselves that is in the sustainability world, and it just carries on. These ripples just keep going, and
Yeah.
it makes me really happy.
It does. And that comes through that it's not important to you just from a business aspect, that it is truly who you are. And that was the big thing in 2017. I'm like,
Oh,
who is this? Who is this person? This is not the person I'm meeting with every week. Where are you in this? And it's so And so here's the thing. You do this. You go on this journey. You learn of Deborah Rosenberg and vegandesign.org. You learn of Nancy. You learn of Fred Burns. You follow the advice of all of these amazing people that have poured into us on this podcast. And you just keep finding Chloe. You keep finding your voice. You keep doing it. And now what happens is the BID notices and Forbes notices and the Telegraph notices and your clients notice. And then you have now this, you have a book on it.
oh, it's
You have a book on it, Chloe. Like,
yeah,
oh my God, like
it's.
this is insanity. Tell me about the book. Tell us the name of the book, where we get the book, all the things.
I've got it here. So this is the book, and so what happened was so the BIID sits alongside the Royal Institute of British Architects here in the UK, and they're a much bigger organisation. They've got a huge membership, and they've got a publishing arm. And somebody approached me from the publishing arm to say, we occasionally have a book written by an interior designer for our offer, and we'd love you to write a book about sustainable interior design. It just came out of nowhere, and it was like, wow. And they'd seen me talking, things on LinkedIn. They'd asked the professional body about, because I'm part of the, so I'm part of the sustainability committee for the BIID. So I always
Okay.
say, and I truly believe it, the more you get involved with these things, the more you get out of them. And so I'm on the south coast, 50 miles from London, but it kind of, it's been really nice to go up there and meet other designers, because I work on my own, and one of the two reasons I joined them was to connect with other designers and to learn more. So yeah, and so I was approached to write the book. They presented an idea to me of what they wanted, and for the professional body, I'd already helped to write a free, which I can put in your show notes,
Oh, good, 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 good.
sustainability guide, which actually was
Mm.
really based on our sort of supplier screening that we did when I was at the Body Shop head office, because everything we used there we checked out, and so that. I sort of said, this is what you're asking me is too similar to that, but what I can see that is needed in our industry is this. And they were like, oh yeah, we like the sound of that. So the way I've constructed it, and actually, do you know, Luann, if I think about I've said this to you before, but it's almost like every day there's something in what I do and it's got you at the bottom of it. So like I constructed this in a Trello board. I started using a Trello board, and years ago you were telling us about apps and software, and I think Trello was one of those.
One of them.
So I started to collect all my research. So basically I've constructed it into 11 chapters, and each of them are like a different route into sustainability, because my own has been vegan design, circular economy, but I know that there's different things that pull us into it. So
That's interesting.
And then I've kind of really enjoyed the research globally, so it's very international. There's loads of, there's some projects in there that people might already know, but I think I found some of them people are like, how did you find us? It's really
Oh,
good.
isn't that something?
And I've done it from TED Talks and following hashtags and LinkedIn and all sorts, so many
Wow.
ways. So that, yeah, it's been great. I've really enjoyed, because I've been in the industry for 30 years and I haven't had children and I haven't had a career break. So it's just been, full on.
Yeah.
It's just been lovely to just stop and look around and kind of find exciting things to share with everyone.
Oh my goodness. I just love it. And what I love is that you did go outside of your own box. Like you with 30-year career, with your knowledge and all the work that you do to educate yourself, you could have just probably wrote the 11 chapters, but I love that you went out into the greater world and researched TED Talks and different things to say, this is a thing. What I'm learning, what I think I'm hearing, you correct me, is this is an angle, this is a point of view, this is a valid area of sustainability, and I could talk about its importance, or I could go into the greater universe and find an example of that in action and then research it and write about it. Is that how you mean that you constructed it? Ah, amazing. Yes. Mm. Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, what are some of the chapter topics? Like, I mean, like you said, we can probably think of a couple, but I bet our mind could be stretched too by some of the others that we might not have thought of.
Yeah, so there's 3 chapters that cover the circular economy. So that's reuse, circular economy, sharing economy, because we don't actually need to own everything that we put in a space. Sometimes it's sensible
Mm.
to rent things for the time that we need them. There's there's a lovely company in Brooklyn that I've put in there, ZZ.
Oh, Brooklyn, US?
Yeah, ZZ
Oh,
Drinks, who they, trends are, I don't love trends because people buy things and then don't use them for the full life. But if you were to rent something that is trend led and use it for the time that you want to, and then return it for somebody else to then rent. So there's, that's all quite a nice different way of looking at things. We don't actually have to own everything.
So this company is like renting like housefuls or apartmentfuls or of furniture.
Yeah.
So, oh, isn't that
And it's lovely how
interesting,
they
right?
source it, because some of it is sourcing vintage and some of it is just working with some really lovely craftspeople and kind of getting into the
Mm,
craft of our industry, which is so lovely as well. Because yeah,
wow.
so that was lovely. And also there's an office design that is a open source design that people can just download. It's Japanese, and people can just download the drawings and then have it all manufactured and put it into their space. So it's sort of like the sharing open source part of the sharing economy. There's
Interesting.
there's buildings that have kind of same theory, using an open source free drawings that people use. So that was really exciting to get into. That was one of my
Wow.
chapters I really wanted to get in there, actually. And then
Mm.
regenerative design, vegan design, and then people. So, animals are often forgotten about the impact in our industry, but the people who are producing things and the effect on people of our industry. So kind of getting into that as well, and also place. So
Go back to people. What do you mean? Do you mean the effect that design can have on people negatively, or do you mean positively? Like, what do you mean by that?
So the examples that I've actually used in here are these are kind of, there's the fair trade, which is something that should be in our industry a bit more. And I don't know if you have it much in the US, but here it's kind of food. You get the fair trade label, so you know that somebody's been paid a living wage.
Ah, got it,
Um,
got it, got it.
but it gets a bit of it in our industry. There's things like FSC timber, which is sustainable timber, so we know that it's from it's replanted and that the biodiversity is protected because it's all kind of done in the proper way. But we also know that people are paid a proper living wage when we use certifications like that. Um,
Gotcha.
so
Okay.
so yeah, the people chapter, I found this amazing company that are doing blockchain version of fair trade. So basically, it's super transparent. It's a public blockchain where each person in the supply chain, from passing it all the way along the process, goes in and they fill out. They answer the questions. They could even make a video, and it can't be tampered with. And so you just have this truly transparent supply
Wow.
chain, and that's been used in a lovely project in Sri Lanka. It's a Sri Lankan project, so that was
Wow.
really nice to write about. Yeah, so, and then there's some lovely refugee projects as well, and talking about Goodweave, who they are a certification that really is trying to ensure there's no children in the supply chain of the rug industry, because you look at the different tiers of these supply chains, and the first tier might not have anyone, but they're outsourcing a lot of things, and they investigate and make sure that there's nothing
Oh.
horrible like, because you don't, yeah, there's so
Oh, whoa.
this
That's
there's
crazy. This world is nuts. I mean, it's absolutely nuts, right? So what you're saying is, I, as an interior designer that is not making it my life's mission to understand this at the level you have, I could look at a particular company and say, oh, these rugs are manufactured in or fabricated in facilities that are not using child labor. And that looks to me legit. But what you're saying is you've discovered that sometimes places that say that's what they're doing, they do have certain amount of production that's happening at that level that's getting a fair wage by grown adults,
yeah.
but then they're outsourcing whatever percentage, whether it's big or small, and now they're falling into these despicable practices of child labor and things like that.
The
Whoa.
trouble is, a lot of these things are made from a long way away from us, and we can't check them out
Yes.
ourselves. And while I don't don't use certifications for everything. There's, long distance things. I kind of want the reassurance of a certification, just so I don't want that misery. I don't want the misery in my clients' spaces. I don't want to.
Right.
So yeah, that was felt really important to write about.
And Goodweave is an organization that does that research all the way down the line.
Yeah,
So if Goodweave, what you're saying you've learned is if Goodweave is certifying an entity, we can trust that.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's helpful, right? Because not everybody's going to make it their life's mission to do a PhD thing
No,
on it, right?
exactly. And this is the thing. We're all so busy, aren't we? And it's just kind of
Yes.
like asking all the right questions. And then it's kind of, you just want to deliver and keep your clients happy. But they're kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, it's some of this just checking. That was quite good to get in here as well.
Interesting.
Yes. And then the place, I've written about place. So I've written about how how your surroundings can influence an interior. So whether we're looking at the sort of geographical area or the materials that are around you or the skills that are around you, and that's been really nice to write about. So there's a beautiful bar that's in Australia, and it's made of rammed earth. So it's a really beautiful sort of process of literally ramming earth to form this shape. And it's in a really contemporary, beautiful place in Byron Bay in Australia. So that was lovely to write about.
And tell me, I'm lost on it. Don't mind me for being dense.
No.
What does that mean, rammed earth, and what is the positive about that? It just went right over my head,
So
Chloe.
it's made in situ with formers, and they literally use local earth and ram it in place. Sometimes it's combined with a bit of kind of cement for sort of stability, but it's kind of just a super local way to make something. You haven't had a long transport. It's just an unusual way to treat kind of making a 3D something. You can have a rammed earth home. It's just there's another project in that chapter is it's called the Tekla House, and it's actually 3D printed with material that is just around in the site, and it's just beautiful. It looks so beautiful. So it's um
I'm like, okay, the book comes out as we're recording, in 2 weeks. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to read the book. Clearly, I need to get up to speed. I just love your passion, though. You're like, it's beautiful. Just take it from me. It's beautiful. I'm like, okay, I believe you.
it's so lovely because I think I've caught myself doing this. You've seen me doing it because I kept working on dentists and kind of I got stuck in
Yes.
this rut and it was lovely. I mean, some of
Yes, the dentists were great people. We don't begrudge the
we all
dentists. They're
need them,
amazing
but
people.
I kind of got stuck in this methodology really of kind of how you do something, and
Yes.
actually it's lovely to just stop and break that and just we don't have to do it that way all the time. There's other ways of doing it. So that's what I've really enjoyed putting in here.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
so yeah, what else have I got in here? So I've got biophilic design, so our love of nature and how that
Mm.
shapes our spaces, and that is just beautiful because that has got so many kind of wellness benefits for us, and so it's lovely to sort of demonstrate that in different ways. There's a beautiful 5-story building in Bali that is made completely with bamboo.
Wow.
It's just wow. And it turns out, that bamboo is such a strong material and it grows so
Yes.
quickly. It sequesters carbon. It's kind of got so many good things. And of course, at the end of its life, it will compost down as well. So
Wow.
it's kind of very circular. So that was really, really nice to write about as well.
Wow. Is barley in the UK? I've never
In
ever heard of that.
Indonesia. So yeah,
Indonesia.
so
Okay, I've never heard of that
oh,
before.
yeah,
Interesting.
it's lovely, lovely. And that was a TEDx talk that I found that one from. And then, yeah,
Interesting.
it turns out, I mean, I think people may know that's Elora Hardy, so people might know of her and her projects, but it's new to me. So, and then healthy building. So, kind of, it's another way. biophilic design kind of, is all the elements and how nature makes us feel, but healthy building is kind of what materials we use in a space, looking at humidity and air quality and all of those things. And one of the projects in there is actually in New York City, Luann.
Oh,
And
interesting.
it's a beautiful restaurant called Vinteria. And that has actually been worked on by a really lovely collaborative team. But one of them is one of the main lecturers of Parsons Healthy Materials Lab, which I did the
Oh,
online course
interesting.
for and absolutely loved it. Yeah.
Of course you did.
And then what have I got at the end? I've got climate and biodiversity emergency, because a lot of us are now signing up to declares in different industries around the world. And in the UK, architects declare set up here, which is just lots of architects declaring that there was this emergency happening and kind of acknowledging that we all need to work together to,
Mhm.
lessen the impact of what we do. So I was one of the designers, along with Jex, who set up
Aw.
interior design declares. So I felt that needed to have a chapter, because it's kind of it's awareness of, again, kind of the sort of carbon and the nature impact of our work. So I really wanted to cover that as well. So I don't know if you've heard of Passive House as
No.
it's a way of building that, is super airtight. It's got triple glazing and a really huge amount of insulation, but a tiny amount of heat comes in because it's so efficient. It's just a really kind of easy to live with, kind of low energy building. So there's actually a factory in Norway that has used that principle for a factory, and it's yeah, it's
Wow.
colourful and gorgeous, and it's actually kind of a visitors centre, and people can kind of walk around the outside of it and even camp in the grounds of it, and it's kind of making it all really accessible, and it's just lovely. Yeah, so that that was really lovely.
Chloe, I have to say, I did not understand the outline, the concept, the way you had the book done before this conversation. And, really, listen, look, for somebody that for anybody, not just, like for anyone that is only mildly or passively in passing interested in sustainability, right? Like maybe it's as a professional in the space, you're curious about it, but they're not drawn to it at the level that you are, right? Like a book on sustainability that is like, do this, not that, do this, not that. Like that is, but to incorporate these stories, these examples, and I'm not even into the pretty, and I'm now looking forward to having the book. And I'm like, literally, Chloe, I'm literally saying to myself, oh, you're going to actually read her book, Luann. Like legit, I'm just going to be honest with you because,
Oh.
like, it's like it is interesting to know that it's no different than you would have interest in a TED Talk. I just never would have found that TED Talk. There's nothing in my world that I get up in the morning and I'm like, what do I need to know about sustainability? Like I don't have that. And so but to have it all in one spot, the 11 different ways that as designers and humans that we can impact the world this way, and that to see the people who are leading this and already doing it is really a very incredibly intelligent and intuitive way to take care of a book that could potentially have been, yeah, thanks so much for writing that, Chloe. It's above my head, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Like you've drawn us in. It's amazing.
it has to be exciting and it has to be inspirational. I
Yeah.
couldn't devote all that time to this and not do it as well as I possibly could. And it's got to excite people.
Yeah. Well, and what I hear is it excited you to do this research to find, like when you were like, Luann, it's rammed earth, it's beautiful. Okay. And I have to say, I don't think I took it as, and it might be aesthetically beautiful, but what I heard in you is the process is beautiful.
Oh,
Well, the result of it is beautiful. That's what I heard is your admiration
yeah,
of it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. The thing of it is, yeah. So, but that's really, really cool. That's I'm even more impressed than I was an hour ago, I
Oh,
have to say,
Louise.
Chloe.
That's so lovely. Yeah, it's just yeah, it's just been a lovely process. And I mean, there's even tiles in here that are made of site waste from a building site. They literally take the
Wow.
site waste from the building site, turn it into tiles, and it goes back in the building that's built on that site again. It's just bonkers. I've
Yeah,
absolutely loved doing this. So
that's
yeah,
exciting.
and I was really lucky that I got to work with a really brilliant illustrator who has just been absolutely amazing, called Eleanor Branch, and she's illustrated each of the chapters for me, and they're all on the letters on the cover, because there's 11 letters in sustainable and there's 11 chapters, so
Oh,
that
I
worked out
love
really
that.
nicely. So each letter on the cover is a different chapter. So yeah,
Oh, that's
and I
awesome. That's
I
awesome.
dreamt about this cover. I dreamt about it. I had to get up and draw it because it was like, whoa.
Mhm.
So it's another one of those funny, yeah, what do you call them when those funny things happen?
The
Yes,
synchronicities,
that's it.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's the synchronicities. I would say this happened here, this happened here, this happened, and bang, they all went together, right?
Oh,
Oh my
yeah, it's
goodness.
been great. Shame I have to go and earn a living because I really quite enjoyed writing a book.
How you gonna go back to designing your authorship little season here. But you know what? Do you see That's an interesting question. You had such a beautiful, fun time doing this process. I don't imagine you're done with designing, but is there more books come like in your mind? If somebody said, "Hey," if this publisher said, "What's next? What's next book?" Do you see it already? Is it like the way you could happen next, or no?
I mean, there's some projects that have come since that I would have loved to have got in. And then I really wanted to
Mm,
sort of look at the building in a community and kind of and do a chapter on that, but it just did come through in time. But during the time I've worked on this, I've become a B Corp, and I've also become Living Future accredited, and that has been, I mean, really
Wait, go back again. You did not say you became a beat cop, did
B
you?
Corp, yeah, B
What the heck?
B
No.
Corporation. Do you,
Oh, a B Corp.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, you know what I thought you said, a beat
Oh
cop, a B-E like, I'm like, "Wait, so you're a Bobby now? Like an interior designer, an author, and a Bobby?"
no,
I'm like, "What's going on over there, Chloe? That's, like, too far out of the lane." Okay, so a B Corp. Go ahead.
yes. So, and both of those things were really helpful for the writing process and the research process as well. But the Living Future accredited has been just really interesting again. So those are certified buildings, and there's one in here that kind of they basically look at who was on in a piece of land in terms of people and biodiversity. And when they put a building there, they acknowledge the people that have been before, the indigenous people. They put back more nature than there was when it before. They bring back native species and things like that.
Yeah.
And then their buildings are very self-sustaining. So the one here is actually a shopping centre, which and it's got like an urban farm on the roof, and it's just beautiful. Again, it's just beautiful, but
Yeah.
and it's kind of using all of its water. It's kind of getting all of its solar. It's just doing
Yeah.
all of that and being a shopping centre that isn't using toxic chemicals in each of the units. So there's a big list called the red list that they are required to avoid. And so when it even came to the nail bar that's in there, all those chemicals that we're putting on our nails, then they weren't allowed to come into this building. So to find another way of, another product that didn't have all of those red listings
Oh,
in.
like you mean like manicure, pedicure
Yeah.
salons? Like you couldn't just have one in this mall
No.
unless you adjusted the actual materials and products that you are putting on the clients.
And what's
Whoa, that's
interesting,
amazing.
yeah, it is, and the retailer went with it, you know, so they found the answer. It's now kind of with a lot of these units that have been into this shopping centre, the learnings that they've made on this one project, which is in Melbourne, they've now brought into all of their stores in other places, and it's having that ripple effect again. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's really interesting.
Well, because you know what I just heard in there? Legit. Like, if I am the one nail salon that is saying no harmful chemicals, like, you know how many mothers bring their 3 and 4-year-old granddaughters and daughters? You know, like, would I ever, like, I would probably drive 45 minutes out of my way to take Lucy and Bella
Oh,
to a nail salon that didn't have chemicals, even if I might, in a hurry, subject myself to
yeah,
it, right? Like, and then what happens is you now are creating that awareness that you don't have to have a manicure pedicure with chemicals. Like, it's just the possibility that it can happen. And then to your point, the ripple effect of it.
yeah,
That's incredible. Like, you could see a closed minded business person being like, that's ridiculous. We'll never be able to make our cost to be open number if our nail salon has to give up X amount of product. But the creative person and the visionary sees that, you know something, if even if we're the only one in all of Melbourne, all of the people that this matters to are going to drive to us, right?
exactly. So they've done that niching thing
Whoa.
again.
Yes, yes, it's so true. It's so true. You know, I almost feel like there could be a whole book about that building, Chloe. Like, we don't want to let the cat out of the bag for somebody to do it ahead of you. But like each chapter could be the journey of each of the retailers and how they had to how they had to overcome challenges. And then, like in the case of that nail salon, that they're rolling it out in all of their other
Yeah.
locations. Like that's pretty
And
cool.
the lovely thing about these living buildings is that they really do encourage the education piece at the end of the project. So they do like tours, and they do brochures that they share with
Mm.
people to because they want other people to do what they're doing. You know,
Yeah.
it's a lovely thing to see, because for so long we've been kind of, it's all been industry secrets, and we don't share
Yeah.
things that we learn, you know. So it's lovely to see the opposite of that. But so there's also living product challenge, which applies all the same principles to products. So there's a beautiful chair made by Human Scale that I've written about in there as well. And they're from New Jersey, Luann.
Really?
Yeah.
Something out of the dirty Jersey other than tomatoes and blueberries and cranberries and, smog? I don't know. Like, so what is
Yeah.
that?
So it's a really beautiful chair, which is actually in my healthy building section, but it could have gone in most of the chapters. Actually, it's really a very conscious chair. But they've also addressed all of their manufacturing. The guy that runs the company is called Bob King, and there's a piece which I've quoted him, where he's sort of saying you have to do the hard thing. You have to sort of address the hard thing, because it's going to, it's going to have a ripple effect, but it's also going to have a really
Mhm.
good product at the end of it. So that was,
Wow.
yeah, lovely.
And what is the qualities of a human chair? What is the things that, make it a sustainable
It's
product?
super repairable. The parts are available. You know what it's like when things break, and it's so frustrating.
Yes.
There's no, there's so much planned obsolescence around, not just in our
Yes.
industry. They've used like C plastic. They've reduced the amount of parts. It's kind of as light as possible on materials. They've just done it all very consciously, and it's one of those chairs that you sit in and it adjusts itself to you. You don't have to do all
Oh.
this messing about. So,
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
it's beautiful again. So, yeah, lovely.
Well, and you know what's interesting, because you're right. So many companies in across the world, they do build in the obsolescence, to your point, the end of their product. I mean, just this weekend in real time, we had 2 examples of it. I have a Fitbit watch,
Yeah.
and I have the watch for 2 reasons. I don't want all the bells and whistles. I don't want it to talk to me. I don't want it to read my messages. I want to know what time is it, and I want to know how many steps I took. That's all I want to know from this
Yeah.
watch,
Yeah.
okay? And I also need a watch because I can't see well. And if I wake up in the middle of the night, I cannot see an alarm clock on the nightstand. So I need to have it where I can hit it, it lights up, and I can see the time. So I know if it's 3 o'clock and I've got 4 hours left, or if it's 6 o'clock and dang it, I only have an hour left, right? Um, and this weekend, my Fitbit watch 4 times in like 5 days this last week, it went down to like 20% battery
Oh,
after charging up to 100. And I was like, what is going on? Am I not setting it right? Blah, blah, blah. And I Googled it. How long does a Fitbit 5 charge 5 last? Oh, usually 2 to 3 years. I'm like, are you kidding me with this right now? So this watch is probably 3 to 4 years old. And it was like things you can do to revive your battery. I'm like, whatever. Like I got to follow this YouTube 16-page instruction. Why don't you just make the watch
yeah.
last more than a hot minute? Right. And then the other thing that was so funny that happened this weekend, Vinny and I bought the house that we're in, the shore house that we're in. We bought it 3 years ago. It was, I think, 18 months or 2 years old when we bought it. So the house at most is 5, maybe 6 years old.
Right.
Okay. Brand new build from scratch, came furnished, was, built to be rented and all the things out, designed beautifully by some designer, whoever they were. And of course, it has a higher level refrigerator in it. Doesn't have your $600, you got it off the Home Depot floor refrigerator. It's got a beautiful refrigerator. It's got all beautiful appliances, right? Well, the last 2 times we've gone to the beach house, the freezer isn't cold.
Oh.
And of course, there's no food in it because I don't cook until the summer comes when the kids come. And then I just stock the refrigerator and they cook. Like, I'm not cooking, right? But like, what happens is every week I'm bringing back and forth my cottage cheese and my yogurt. So I'm putting my ice packs in the freezer so I can take them home. That's the only reason I know the freezer isn't working. We don't use the damn thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, the ice packs aren't cold again. So he calls and the person says, oh, yeah, it's probably the compressor. He's like, this refrigerator can't be 6 years old. Oh, they usually last XYZ. So we're aggravated at this. Okay. But here was the irony of it. We have to unplug the whole thing, the whole refrigerator or freezer, because the compressor overpowering, he reads on YouTube, could start a house fire.
Oh.
And we're going to be out of the house now for 8 days.
Yeah.
And so he's like, what you do have in the refrigerator has got to go downstairs to the downstairs refrigerator. So here we are moving the 10 items that's there. And he makes the observation, like, what's so funny is when we bought this house, this had this refrigerator in the basement, but it's clear that this is probably a 15-year-old refrigerator that wasn't probably more than $600 at Home Depot. But yet, we're moving everything from the expensive refrigerator upstairs to this workhorse that was built to last.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a joke. It's an absolute joke,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, to your point, people don't build things to last anymore. It's obnoxious, actually.
And they don't make
right?
it easy to repair, and they don't make the parts available.
Yeah.
And it's criminal, really. And I know that there's a right to repair, which is a big thing over here. Well, especially in the EU, and they're trying to ensure that parts are available for so long, so that we have half a chance of keeping these things going, because it's just, that's what we've got to do, is kind of, I really want to make sure that my clients love what I'm delivering to them. So I really try and work on that brief and make sure, and then I want them to keep them for as long as the lifespan is, and if not, I want them to be able to sell it on. If you buy better, usually it's easy to sell things on again. So
and that goes for workmanship, like artisan stuff, you said, but it's the opposite sometimes with Fitbits and refrigerators and stuff like that. It's like the opposite.
Yeah.
Like, computers. Well, how long should my Apple and Mac Air last? 2 to 4 years. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Like 2 to 4 years, and you just dump it into the landfill? But it is, I think, with people like you, Chloe, talking about it, writing about it, designing around it, bringing it to the attention of, like, I'll call the garden variety humans like me that are not passionately leading the charge, but we're actively annoyed on the sidelines. Now it becomes, okay, is there a version? I would be the consumer that would be, all right, is there a version of this product, to your point, that maybe it costs a little more, but it does have the right to repair built into it, or it does have these other things where I can say to myself, yes, good for the world, good for the planet, but also costs a little more, maybe, but I can expect it to have the lifespan of like more than a minute,
Yeah, absolutely.
because there sits that Fitbit in the garbage because I dialed Amazon up and had a new one delivered the next day because I have to have one on my wrist when I'm sleeping or I don't know what time it is.
I've got a redundant Fitbit as well. I've had exactly the same trouble. It's shocking, isn't it? But yeah, and then these things, we need to be able to easily take them apart at the end of their life. If we've got the full life out of
Yeah.
them, we need things that aren't, super glued together. We need to be able to break up the materials
Yes.
so they can be recycled. It's quite,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's really frustrating.
That's interesting. One last thing I want to touch on before I let you go. At one point during the conversation, you said, I can't think of how you phrased it, but oh, misery. You said misery. And it reminded me of Deborah Rosenberg from vegandesign.org. And when we were talking about like the rugs that might be produced with child labor or whatever, and you just said, I don't want that misery in my client's home. And it's just that conversation where, I don't know what the word you would use for it, but the aura of something that comes along with a product. Like when you said that, I was like, oh, that's a Deborah belief. And not that you got it from her, but that it's a shared belief that you have with Deborah. Talk about that for a
Well,
minute.
yeah, it's just, when you know that there's some exploitation. I don't know. It just feels we know what I'm sure I've heard that from Deborah, but I feel it completely. And when you have something positive in your home that reminds you of a person and you walk past it, that kind of thing, we want to have people feeling good about the stuff. I mean, I wrote a little bit about the Marie Kondo experience in one of my chapters, this kind of in I think I wrote about in the sharing economy one actually, but only have things that make you feel good in your home.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's kind of it's speaking to that really. But I'm sure you the bit that frustrates me about our industry is you pay a lot of money for something and you then therefore expect or you assume that everybody's been paid well, everyone's been treated well. Um,
Mhm.
you feel like, well, I've paid the right price for it.
Yes.
But when you find out sometimes, not always, but sometimes a lot of that is just a profit, and then the people have been paid less than living wage or, working in really unsafe working conditions or, and then you hear about all the animal product misery stories, which, are grim. So it's kind of like,
Mhm.
this isn't such a beautiful, luxurious product all of a sudden. It's kind of once I
Mhm.
break it down into its component parts that way, yeah, there's some ugliness in there, and I don't want to bring that to my clients. When I can
Yeah.
bring them next generation materials, bio-based materials, things that are problem solving and beautiful
Mm.
and have lovely storytelling, because we all love to tell a story about the things that we have around us in our homes. So
Mhm.
and businesses love to tell the stories because it's part of their marketing as well. So
Right, right, right. We'll put it in the show notes, and I'm sure I'll mention in the outro a lot of this conversation reminds me of the shows with Jaipur, right? How Jaipur talk about their artisans and so forth. So
yeah,
love
yeah.
that, love that, love that. Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting thing it's. I remember between you talking about it and Deborah talking about it, it's like just like when, you had the aha moment when I said, well, if I go into a restaurant and they serve everything, do they do anything good? Listen, don't write me an email. I'm sure there's some buffets that everything is delicious. Okay. But it's just the broad concept of it. Right. But the idea is that I remember hearing that point of view and thinking, when you use the example like you just did, when I walk by this piece in my home, it makes me feel good. So how do I argue with, like, how do I say that that inanimate object actually creates a physical biochemical reaction in my body, but there isn't one created by a negative one? And the only stretch that people like yourself and Deborah make is that even though we don't know went into the background of it, that juju is there. You know what I mean? And that is a belief that it's in there. And as you uncover more conversations about biophilic design and how your chemicals and your physical cells are actually impacted positively by things that go in, it sort of is almost like, what's your defense, what's your argument for saying that the negative isn't there, right? Like, and so it's kind of like, I remember 100 years ago, like, I think it's more accepted now that we're probably not the only universe on the planet and that is probably life in other universes, right? Like, but I can remember being a kid and when, people are like, well, there can't be life on other planets, we would know about it. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like really?
Yeah.
Like, like, what? Like, how is that even
Yeah.
logical? Like, how is that even logical that the universe that's been discovered, the multiple sizes and many universes, but we're the only ones, we're the only planet with somebody on it. And so from a very young age, I'm like, no, no, no. There's other peoples out there, whatever they're called. And I trust in things that just have like an innate logic to it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that what you talk about in that regard is sort of like a non-debatable innate logic. Whether we ascribe to it consciously or not, I think is the argument that you make. Is you as a designer, you're going to do what you can not to put that, to your word, misery in someone's home. And I think that's really commendable.
Yeah, there's so many positive things to do instead. So why would I
Yes,
even think, like it's just not even worth spending the time on. So
the
yeah,
options are
because
there.
I've
Yeah,
put,
yeah.
there's just so many examples, but yeah, I feel a bit like a wound up spring after writing the book. I feel like I've learned so much that I just want to blitz, go out there and help my industry, help my clients. I feel I want to help other designers to work in the same way that I do, and work on their
Mhm.
B Corp journey and, work on their sustainability policies and things like that. I feel like I can be quite useful to people in other ways other
Yeah,
than just my clients now. So that's been
yeah.
that's been quite interesting.
Oh my goodness. I love it. I love it. I mean, high five, hats off, standing ovation, all the things, my friend. The growth is incredible. The power, the passion, the confidence, all the things is just been so enjoyable to watch you on this transformative journey. It really, really has. And to culminate it in a book is just like, whoa. And you're not done. This is not the end. You're going to do other things, whether, like you said, it's just being a voice in the industry, just impacting your clients' lives, teaching your colleagues. And I cannot wait. By the time this show airs, the book will be available for purchase. So do we go to Amazon to get it? Like, do I have those links yet? How do we do that?
Yeah, Amazon are going to be one of the places in the States to sell it. Yeah, for sure.
Great.
If I find out about others, I'll let you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be for sale everywhere because it is written about everywhere nearly. so
Yes. Yes.
so
I know. It's so exciting. It's so
it's
exciting.
really exciting.
Oh my goodness. Well, congratulations, Chloe. I'm just like, we're not done. We have a whole lifetime to be together, and I'm going to continue watching all the amazing things you do. But I really, really appreciate your coming and sharing all of this with us today.
Luann, I cannot begin to tell you how many things you've helped me with without even realizing. I mean, I started to write a list and it's just ridiculous. Everything I'm using, my Doma, working with my Doma to put carbon values against the products in my Doma. Did you know that was happening? And so now,
No, I did
yeah, so
not.
I asked them if they do it and they did it. They're so brilliant. So now when we put
Oh, yeah.
in a monetary value, we can also put in a carbon value and then tot up the carbon footprint of a project. I needed it to happen for me, and now they've done it for everybody. And it's so, yeah, there's just everywhere I turn, there's a Luann thing that you've helped me with, and I can't believe how. I mean, your books, it's just everything is just brilliant, and I still can't keep up with the podcast episodes. I'm listening all the time, and it's just, I don't know how you find the energy, and it's so helpful for us all, because it is like having coaching. I've met the most wonderful people. It's just, you have literally changed my life. So I'm so grateful. Thank
That's
you.
so
Thank
sweet.
you, Luann.
I mean, it's been all of us together, right? It's all of us together. You have to, the experts and the different companies, Mydoma and all the others, have to show up, and they have to be that full partner that we're looking for. And then you listening, Chloe, there's thousands of designers that listen, that they write a note in a book and they don't take the action. Like, they just like, that would be a great idea. That's another great idea. I should do that. You do it. And that is, and what you've created over these last 8 years is the evidence of trusting the experts that we brought on the show, their opinions, their processes, and then executing. And what I know to be true is that nobody has to execute it step by step, verbatim, the way anybody says it on the show. You can take what somebody says, tweak it to make it your own, to make it feel like you, do like you, work like you. And even the example of, finding Mydoma through the show and then saying, this is great, but I love this. Like, that's the thing that's amazing about you and others that I actually know from firsthand experience, have changed their business because you've done the work. That's the truth of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you're approaching your 1,000th show, which is amazing.
I know.
I don't know where this one falls in it, but it's so exciting to watch this. I can't believe it. I can remember you coming up to your 300th. It's incredible. It's incredible. And I've loved watching it.
Do you know what's interesting? I can remember doing a podcast episode for the 25th episode. And I remember making a big deal personally of the 25th episode, because there is a podcast stat in the podcast industry, and I'll never remember the percentage, but it's a ridiculously high percentage, like 80+% of all podcasts launch never hit their 25th episode.
Wow.
And I remember I was like, this is 25. And the additional stat was something to the effect of the ones in the small percentage that make it to 25, then a lesser percentage of them will make it to 50, and even a lesser percentage will make it to 100. But the ones that make it to 100, the biggest percentage of them will continue. And I remember marking 25, marking 50, marking 100. And I'm like, okay, game on. We're still going. Like, and now it's going to be, now you're going to air about a month before the 1,000th episode. And it is kind of a crazy, daunting number. And a teaser alert, Jude Charles interviews me for that episode.
I wondered.
Yes. And he actually, because we just did part of the interview, of course, Jude and I were going to do it 19 times and get it, so we could both say this is the right one. But he said to me, Lou, this means that you have for more than 500 weeks in a row shown up and done this. And I had to sit back at that number. I was like, whoa,
that's
500 weeks, like deadline driven work for 500 weeks in a row. I was like, he's a big advocate for me figuring out a path to taking a month off at least once a year, if not twice.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yes. And so he's been after me for about a year. You can do it. You can figure it out. I'm like, I don't figure it out. How can you do it? Right. But we're working on it. We have all the big brains working on it. Eileen, Amber De La Garza, Jude, like all of us are working on it. And not impact you guys. Right. And so when he said that, I was like, no wonder you are an advocate of me taking a break. I'm like, that's insane. So, but it is the feedback that keeps me going, Chloe. It is the little touches that, you might touch me 3 times in a year. It's not like it's your job to give me a high five on something, but you do it 3 times a year, then somebody else does it 3 times a year, and somebody else does it 3 and somehow, some way, every single week, I get the feedback that keep doing this. And so I keep getting up
Oh.
and doing it.
And you're
So,
finding, you're showing how diverse our industry is, and you're showing how interesting it is, because you're not just, everybody has got another angle. It's just, and you're so
yes.
interested in us all, and it's just so lovely. So thank you.
Well, it's a crazy business model that you guys have. It's just every time I think I have my brain wrapped around, I'm like, wait, what? So
Oh,
it's been infinitely interesting for me. And I keep saying, as long as I'm interested, we'll keep going. As soon as I'm bored, you'll all know
oh,
it.
it's very impressive.
So, yeah, no, it's awesome. But I just appreciate you, Chloe, so much, from being avid and vocal from the beginning. And, in that first session of coaching back in 2017, being vulnerable. I remember saying, I have to tell you the truth, right? Like, you're okay, right? And you're like, yep, lay it on me. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
Oh,
But it takes a lot of courage to have someone, to know that someone is by your side for your best
oh
interest,
yeah.
but to still hear the hard things,
Yeah, there was,
it's not to be
it was
underestimated.
for my benefit, and I really appreciated it. And if anyone has to tell me, it had to be you. So, no, it was really helpful. So I'm so happy that you like my website now.
Oh my gosh, it's
Good.
amazing. It's so amazing.
Oh,
So, oh my goodness, my friend, thank you for being with me today. I appreciate
it's
you.
such a pleasure, and love to Vinny, please.
Yes.
Bye bye, Lou.